Hello, I'm George Varchera. I'm a nurse working with a population of renal failure patients in a dialysis setting. One of the major problems that I face on a daily basis with my patients is improper fluid and electrolyte management. In this presentation, I want to help and educate renal failure patients to achieve better health and success in their treatments through better fluid and electrolyte management. Human beings are made up of mostly water. Your cells contain two-thirds of this water, cells such as fat cells. One-third of this water are outside of your cells in structures such as your heart, your arteries, your veins, your brain, etc. Now, electrolytes are generally tiny particles that, when put into the water, it disperses a charge. It plays a role in nerve function, muscle function, as well as bone mass. What do your kidneys do? They eliminate extra fluid, balance electrolytes, release hormones for the production of blood, as well as play a significant role in acid-base balance. Basically, you can think of them as a powerhouse that controls your fluid and electrolyte management, as well as other functions as well. What is chronic renal failure? Chronic renal failure is a progressive and irreversible loss of kidney functions. Now, it can happen for a whole host of different reasons, but one thing is for certain, your kidneys aren't working right and eventually they will stop working. This slide compares and contrasts a healthy kidney versus an unhealthy kidney. A healthy kidney, as I mentioned before, functions with sodium and water removal, waste removal, and hormone production. An unhealthy kidney, or a kidney with chronic renal failure, will have problems such as fluid overload, the buildup of fluid in your legs, your lungs, your stomach, and such. Elevated waste, such as urea, which is a byproduct of protein metabolism, of so byproduct of the meats that you eat. Creatinine, which is a byproduct of muscle metabolism, so using your muscles around will build up a lot of creatine. And potassium, which is an electrolyte. It also has changes in hormone levels, hormones that control blood pressure, the hormones that make red blood cells, and hormones that control the uptake of calcium. The first problem that we mentioned was fluid overload. What do I generally worry about when I see a patient come in with fluid overload? What I look for would be blood pressure first. Increased blood pressure can lead to increased stress at the heart and arteries, which can lead to strokes and even a cardiac arrest. Swelling in the extremities caused by fluid filling up in your extremities. This can lead to painful ankles, feet, and it can also build up to fluid buildup around your eyes. I can also see shortness of breath. Now, shortness of breath can be shortness of breath that doesn't let you walk across the room without huffing and puffing. Or it can be shortness of breath to a point where you cannot breathe. And this is an emergency situation, of course. Or we can have abdominal bloating and discomfort as well. The second major problem in this presentation is electrolyte imbalance. We'll start talking about potassium. Potassium is one of the major electrolytes that we tend to dialyze out during your treatment. Too high or too low levels of potassium can lead to a cardiac arrest even, and can be fatal, obviously. Sodium. Sodium can be associated with increased or decreased blood pressure. Too high sodium can increase your blood pressure. Too low of sodium can decrease your blood pressure and cause dehydration. Magnesium is one of the other things that we dialyze out. Increased level of this can cause a reduced heart rate, blood pressure, and can also cause a cardiac arrest. As I mentioned before, calcium and phosphorus are two important electrolytes. Now, phosphorus does not dialyze out too well during your treatments. So, actually, calcium and phosphorus have an inverse relationship, so that when your phosphorus goes up, your calcium comes down, and when your calcium goes up, your phosphorus comes down. Now, because phosphorus is not eliminated well throughout your treatment, your phosphorus will tend to increase and your calcium will tend to decrease. And when your body notices a decreased level of calcium, what it'll tend to do is take calcium from its resource of calcium. And your resource for calcium within your body are your bones. Now, your bones will start to demineralize and shrink at this point, which can cause problems on its own. But over time, the demineralization and the shrinking of your bones and all that calcium that flows into your bloodstream will begin to deposit in your arteries and your veins and your skin. They'll start to harden your arteries and your veins. They'll start to harden your heart, and you'll eventually end up with an enlarged, rigid heart that is incapable of sustaining life, really. Now that you've heard all about the worst case scenario and all that can go wrong, what can we do about it? I simply call my solution the renal diet. It follows 3 steps. The first one is fluid restriction as ordered by your doctor. Your doctor will generally prescribe or tell you that you can have a limited amount of fluid per day. It's usually between 1 and 1.5 liters per day. The second part of the diet would be to restrict salt, your potassium, and your phosphorus from your diet. And the third part is adhering to your medication and your treatments as prescribed. So how do we limit our fluids or restrict our fluids? I have 2 methods here to do that. And the first one, if you are neat and like organization, would be to use a log, jot down everything that you intake, and you can even jot it down on your latest smartphone these days. Now, the second option, if you're a visual person like I am, is to measure out the prescribed amount of fluid in a jar. So if the doctor tells me I can have 1.2 liters of fluid a day, I will put 1.2 liters of water in a jar and drink out of the jar whenever I need to. If I drink something else, I will empty the same amount in the jar as I drank. So if I drink 8 ounces of coffee this morning, I would empty out 8 ounces. I would measure out 8 ounces from the jar and empty that out as well. Lastly, remember that everything that is liquid at a room temperature is considered a liquid, such as ice chips, ice, jello, etc. One more thing, remember that fruits that are high in liquid, and try to adjust for that as well. So if you eat a lot of watermelons, you're probably intaking a lot of water as well. Now the second major part of this presentation is managing your electrolytes. How do we go about doing that? By restricting them, of course. The first electrolyte is sodium, and you want to try to eat sodium-free or unsalted products whenever possible. You generally want to stay under 100 milligrams of sodium per serving. Another tip would be to use herbs instead of salt, so use unsalted garlic powder or pepper or such to season your foods. The second electrolyte is potassium. We want to remember that there's a lot of potassium in a lot of fruits and vegetables. So you want to limit fruits such as oranges, kiwi, dried fruit, bananas, avocados, tomatoes, and vegetables such as potatoes, asparagus, and spinach. These tend to be high in potassium and we want to avoid them. Now, if you would take a look at this nutrition label, on the left side we have low sodium canned diced potatoes, and if you look at the circled area, it says sodium 10 milligrams per serving, and this is 1% of your daily intake. You want to look at 10 milligrams. This is definitely under your 100 milligram total. Now, on the right, you'll see canned diced potatoes. These are regular canned diced potatoes, and if you look at the bottom, you'll see 150 milligrams of sodium, and that's over 15 times the amount as the first label. And you want to steer free from products such as the second one, if you can, and choose the first one. As I said before, maintaining a healthy phosphorus and calcium balance is really important to your health as a chronic renal failure patient. Now, every organic substance in this world will contain an amount of phosphorus in it. So that means everything that you eat will have phosphorus in it. So what can we do about how can we balance out the phosphorus and calcium? The answer is simple. While you cannot avoid them, we can avoid all the high foods and foods that are high in phosphorus. So you want to avoid your dairy, your seeds, your seafood, your porks, and your other meats, especially your deli. These tend to be high in phosphorus. Secondly, you want to remember to take your binders with each meal as prescribed. Your binders work to attach to the phosphorus in your stomach before they get absorbed by your body, and once it attaches, it then works to eliminate them so that your body never absorbs it. So every meal or food you take, you should be taking your binders with them. Okay? In this slide, we have some images and options for good choices and poor choices of foods. Let me go through the good choices first. From left to right, you want to intake fresh herbs, salt-free spices such as garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, and peppers, such as I mentioned before. You can intake in unsalted crackers, unsalted popcorn, unsalted pretzels, and unsalted graham crackers. You can do lean beef, lean pork, poultry, fish, and low salt deli meats. You want to choose homemade soups over canned soups, but if you had to get a canned soup, you go for the low sodium version of a canned soup. Choose fresh or frozen vegetables over canned vegetables. And go for plain dry noodles and rice instead of fried rice or fried noodles. Poor choices that you can make would be table salt, seasoning salt, garlic salt, barbecue sauce, steak sauce, and soy sauce. You want to stay away from fast food restaurants, such as in that picture. The double cheeseburger contains dairy, which is high in phosphorus. It's high in sodium, and the burgers itself are high in phosphorus as well. So we got a double whammy there. You want to avoid potato chips, salted crackers, corn chips, pretzels, and popcorn. You want to try to avoid cold cuts and deli meats such as ham, bacon, sausage, and other foods such as hot dogs, bologna, regular corned beef, pastrami. And you also want to avoid things that you think is good, such as your pickles, your relish, your sauerkraut, your olives. They tend to be high in potassium. The last part is adhering to treatment as prescribed. A typical patient will survive about 7 to 10 days without their treatments. But even missing a day of treatment, a few hours throughout the week, or an hour of treatment can affect your health in a bad way. So try to show up for your treatments on time and be there all week. Don't check out early. Secondly, is the medications. Your nephrologist, your healthcare team all work to kind of fine tune your medications just for you. And it's important that you take them as prescribed and take them regularly. Your binders with every meal, as I mentioned, and take all your other meds regularly. If any issues arise with the meds, such as a side effect that's unpleasant or uncomfortable, make sure you let your healthcare team know. Instead of stopping the medication, give your doctor a call, give your nurse a call, give your healthcare worker a call. Also, if you do not have the money or the resources to get those meds, such as financial resources to get the meds, talk to your social worker. Usually they have a solution for you. In conclusion, we as healthcare providers strive to provide you with the tools to lead an optimal and productive, healthy life. It is important that many of you as patients, as their family, as their caregivers, take use of these tools and take charge of your own health. This presentation is just a general guide and is in no way designed to supersede your doctor's prescription. You should discuss any changes that you want to make with your healthcare providers.